But if you sold $150 spots, $0 spots, average 75, and 75 was a logical rate, it's just fine. Depends then.
Yep.
Okay. All right. We're headed toward looking at data. I don't think the conference call has come in. I guess not.
Done?
Yeah.
What would you like us to accomplish while you're on your conference call?
I think I want you to start walking them through their data. Now, I'm not going to go to the conference call until they call. So let's start looking at ShareBuilder. Is there any other questions that you have so far? All right, this is fabulous. You guys are wonderful, great questions, you're absorbing. We're through most of the complex boring stuff. Now we'll start looking at your data.
Where do you want to start?
I want to start in price plans, looking at sellout levels and data. So, this is your price plan. We're going to look at third quarter of 08. Okay? When we hit, there's totals on the top. This is a sum of all of your data sign on to sign off. Here's July 07, August 07, September 07, a third quarter total, a weekly average from 05. This is a quarterly sum, this is a weekly average. This is a weekly average from 06. This is a weekly average 07. You just divide this by 13.28 and you'll get this. 13.28 weeks in third quarter. Here is your plan for 08, sign on to sign off. All right? Here's your capacity, sellout units, percent sold, average rate. Ideal rate's kind of complex. It's simply, if you did the same revenue and hit 95% sellout, what would the rate have been? 95 is what we think is about the most perfect sellout level. Gives you room for some mistakes.
And for runs promos.
Yeah, we're not doing that on purpose. It's room for us misjudging demand. Okay? A little higher is okay if you don't have too much preemption. Revenue, demo rating. This is weighted by different books. It's a blend. Here's your cost per point. Your ideal CPP is the same idea. If you hit your ideal sellout, this is irrelevant for you. It's a variable that we use. A little higher is okay if you don't have too much preemption. Revenue, demo rating. This is weighted by different books. It's a blend. Here's your cost per point. Your ideal CPP is the same idea. If you hit your ideal sellout, this is irrelevant for you. It's a variable that we use. Okay? Now let's look at 6 a.m. By the way, let's go back to the totals. These are very high sellouts. Average much higher than most. It means you're either running much hotter than your image, or you're filling with a bunch of junk, one of the two. Okay? We don't know which that is. Doesn't matter.
This goes back to, I think, a question that the Senate asked earlier. Does your data differentiate between sellout of actual paid spots, eliminating the no charges, promotions, and trade?
Well, depends how the report is pulled. When this was pulled, the base rates, did you pull them?
I pulled so many. Whatever instructions she gave me, that's what I did.
Yeah,
We normally like to eliminate no charge spots
And I think we
that are just
did
bonus
we?
or
Exactly.
I think we did. Yes.
We
I
could
think
set
we
that
did.
up, right?
You have that, look, I don't know as much about BCI as I would. Traffic systems, you can eliminate those.
I'm
I
pretty
think-
sure we
I
can.
think we did exclude no charge spots.
You can usually run those kind of reports so that you sort out the priority codes.
Yeah.
And I think we
Yeah.
did check exclude no charge spots.
So the answer is we're not positive.
I
Okay?
could go look.
It's all right.
That's okay.
Okay.
We did,
There's so
we'll
many
follow
of
up
them.
later.
Don, do you want me to pull up the file?
Will it have it at the bottom?
I'm not sure.
You know what, it might.
All right, let's pull up the report.
Which year?
07, Q3. How about July? Go to the bottom. Doesn't say.
No.
There's some.
I don't think you can tell from this report whether it does. It's not giving you options or filters. Okay? Beverly can figure that out. We take a break, you can go look at it.
Okay.
Let's look then at 6 a.m. So, our sellout level was 97%. You already saw this, okay? Notice your sellout levels are very high here every year. This is suspect, meaning it probably has no charges in it. No one in this size market is running that kind of sellout level with all paid. Nobody, okay? Unless you're just preempting a lot.
Well, I can tell you what the story was the first half of the year. Getting ahead of what would be considered the agencies to give them under delivery up front.
Yeah.
For the decrease in ratings, so we wouldn't have to pay in the back end.
No problem. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I'm just letting you know, that's why there'd probably be such a sellout rate.
But this is third quarter of last year, 07. Notice every year, you look at the average television station in the country, their sign-on to sign-off average sellouts will be 89. That's going to be 95, 96, 97 between 6 a.m. and midnight, and 30% at 2 a.m. or something.
But you're gonna want about 10 though.
Huh?
You're gonna want to have about 10 left, right? 15?
Yeah. Wow. About 5%.
5?
You want to be 90. See, you want to be 95.
Yeah.
But this is almost impossible to have 95 and all of them paid and not have been too tight somewhere. Okay?
But we never really had the no charge spots like we have now.
Okay.
Honestly. we
I'm just
never-
saying that
We really didn't.
if you're running at 95 and this kind of sellout level across the board, you either are filling with, you have a lot of no charge, or you may be a little hotter than you want to be. Okay? Does that make sense?
So, you're saying that there used to be as much no charge. Why do you think there are so many no charge spots now?
Because of the philosophy, the under delivery up front. That's a big reason.
And
God, what do you think?
my personal opinion,
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're just promising too much stuff. Well, we'll give you all these no-charge spots if you'll give us a schedule. Because that's what I think.
All right. Let me have
There's
a,
trade involved in there also.
And see, that's another, like, for instance, Logan County comes to my mind. We give them a matching no-charge schedule for every spot that they buy.
Are they a
Who's this?
nonprofit?
They are, yes.
Who is this?
Logan County.
Logan County. They're nonprofits, so we give them a matching schedule. And like for almost all the events that come in, we have tons of trade spots for.
A lot of trade.
so,
Yeah, and like Rosebud Theater, we have a trade with
Park
them.
District is the biggest one.
But all the new clients like Rosebud Theater and a few of the others, we're giving them trade, and they're just a new client. And Decatur Park District, I see, but it just seems like we have a tremendous amount of trade spots now.
okay. How do you think Don feels about a trade spot for a circus or whatever? You said shows.
Mm-hmm.
We get something like something in the program, mentioned on the stage,
We get tickets.
tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
How does Don feel about trade for tickets?
Well, you got a cash schedule too, right? There's a
Yes,
cash
yes.
schedule.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But how do you think Don feels about trade? Now, by the way, you can make up your mind how you feel. Senna has a responsibility of converting those 115,000 units to the highest revenue possible, not necessarily the most tickets to give away to employees or viewers. Tickets for viewers from my hard revenue production orientation are worthless. They're no charge spot. And that's how we recommend you consider them. Okay?
Did you sit in this before or something?
What?
I was asking Ron if he's had this ShareBuilder before, if he's
Just-
been through it.
Just business logic.
Right.
Hey, look, there's nothing wrong with tickets, but I'd rather have $10 of revenue.
Absolutely.
Okay? And then you can buy the $7 ticket if you want to.
You made $3.
$3 times 115,000 units.
Exactly.
Okay? All right?
Okay.
So, our orientation would say, okay, the bottom rate's $50. If you sell $100 spots to that circus and give them one-to-one no charges for tickets, great. But if you aren't, you may not be selling to the high bidder. Okay? It's just logic, guys. Okay? You got to figure out what you want. Tickets or revenue.
I'm talking revenue.
Yeah, well, that's,
That's all I'm about is revenue.
you know what? It's up to Ron.
We're on the same page.
I understand. You know what I'm saying? And then it's up to Bill. You got to ask, what does Bill want? Ron has to ask, what does Bill want? Does Bill want $7 tickets that we give away to employees, or $10 or $7 a spot?
I don't know if that would be a good question to
All right.
ask.
I'm just saying. You know, I'm not demeaning any point of view.
No.
You work for an individual. What are their needs? What do they want? You have to deliver what they want. What does Bill want? Then Senna, what does Ron want? Then Rod, what does Senna want? Okay? That's what it's all about.
What does Don want?
There you go.
Don wants Bill happy. If possible, Ron happy. If possible, Senna happy. If possible, Rod's happy. But if I only have to have one of those 5 happy, or 4, I want Bill happy.
We're all serving the same master.
No kidding.
Okay. From this, Sarah decides what a planning rate is going to be for this. She evaluates this data and some other data and says, I think we should average $35 a spot. Now, in this particular case, that 35 is illogical. It's about $5 low. Okay? The real little dirty secret is, third quarter is far enough along. What we are using here as what we call our equilibrium rate is what you're averaging. You're averaging 35, which looks like $5 to $10 low to us. Why? It's because your rating is up 20% from a year ago. Your cost per point is down 20%. Your price is maybe as much as 15 to 20% low here,
I got it.
if the demand is flat. Now, if demand is minus 20 or 15, you're perfect. Maybe. Okay, you see how okay? All I want to do is to show you that you have history on every show and maybe every special that ran. Okay? Let's go to Prime and see if there's any Prime specials. Yeah. Well, there's Sunday Night Football. Okay?
Is that what you're looking at?
Another one
That's-
above it.
That's the pre-show.
Okay. All right. Okay? So this is history. You can look at it by day part. You can look at it by total. Okay? This is price planning. Any questions on all this?
Now, this comes out weekly.
Mm-mm. It's stored. Doesn't change much each week. We download the history at the end of the month or the end of the quarter. Okay? Doesn't change much.
Okay.
Okay?
Just for my own edification, just as I'm moving along here, how does this affect the political rate card? Because that's right, I mean, I promised, I have a client waiting for Monday morning for the political rate card. You promised me I'd have a rate card, so I'm assuming I can do a political rate card off the rate card you gave me, and I can get that done and emailed out tomorrow afternoon.
We're going to tackle that later in the day.
Okay,
But let me write it down up here. Here is your short answer. We're going to recommend that you have a political grid that looks something like this.
okay, like the one Marty.
Section
is this
numbers,
the one
class
that
of
Marty
times.
has?
Probably.
Okay.
We probably taught her how to do it, or Bill knew how to do it. And you're going to have different classes of time. This section 1 is going to be something like non-preemptible shortened rotation. This is going to be non-preemptible. This is going to be preemptible with notice. And this is going to be immediately preemptible. You're going to have a printed political official rate card. Okay? And you're going to put your average rate that you're going to average somewhere around a section 3,
Okay, so my
Okay.
average rate would go section 3.
approximately.
Okay, that part I.
You're going to raise this at least 50%.
Oh.
You're going to raise this 30 to 50%.
Okay.
And you're going to legally gouge politicians.
Where's your lowest unit rate?
Lowest unit rate will be determined by what you sell that week, not by your rate card. Your lowest unit rate's probably going to be in 4s, immediately preemptibles. Okay?
What if they ask for a lowest unit rate?
You quote it. You'll quote either an estimate or a detailed analysis of it. So, if
Nice, that is nice, because you know what, they're not gonna mess with that.
most won't,
They'll be like, forget it, just give me.
unless it's media strategies
um,
out of Washington DC, most will not buy
Oh,
LURs.
will you show it on the rate card?
No.
So you're only gonna show 3 sections?
Okay. What I want you to understand is, we will do this for you,
Okay.
but we will leave this one blank.
Because it's moving every week.
It will be moving every
Every week.
week. Okay?
So you,
So
so
this-
you, go ahead.
This is called a political grid card or a grid card, and we do it with we create a grid card with calculations pretty
Ah, it's why he brought them.
just notice how long it took? It was less than a second, right?
That's right.
Okay? All right? So we'll give you a political grid card,
Nice.
okay? You'll have some work to do on it, but it will be, okay? It's a very sophisticated plan. Now, once you do that grid card doesn't change much, okay? The only reason you change it is a new rating book came out, okay? You'll have a grid card by quarter. It'll be different in third quarter than fourth.
Okay.
You'll need to section every order against that grid card. Okay, here is the deal. If you sell a $99 spot, it has to be a section 4. It is not negotiable,
Right. That's right. Yeah, that makes complete sense.
okay? If it's a $149 spot, it's a 3.
What about when
as we-
programming change, I'm sorry, when programming changes, will it show the program change? Like say, okay, Celebrity Family Feud's not doing great, so NBC comes in, they say, okay, effective I just picked a program.
Effective tonight.
Okay, and so they change it to deal. This deal's gonna be effective from,
If you leave them in those time periods, what the FCC, see, you have two people to worry about are political. They are the FCC, okay, and the Department of Justice, okay? The FCC can do a political inspection and fine you or force rebates. Secondarily, a candidate can sue you in federal court. All right? So, that doesn't happen very often that you get sued. It doesn't happen very often that you get inspected. Probably should happen more. The industry's horrible at this. But, this time, if you're going to do this, almost no one does this by program. They do it by time period.
Exactly.
Is the answer. Okay? If you want to attempt to do this by program, you can. But it is hard.
You do by time.
Okay? All right,
Okay.
is that your answer? Now, this is a political grid card. Once you do not give to clients unless they're political clients. Okay? It shows the classes of time and the LUR for classes of time. This will be your LUR for preemptible with notice. This will be your LUR for non-preemptible. This is your LUR for preemptible. I shortened the rotation. Okay? But your LUR for immediately preemptible is decided by what runs, not by what is quoted. Okay? So you leave that open usually.
During the given week.
Get during that week. Okay? Now some people put an estimate of that, but we recommend you literally leave it open.
If they ask for it,
Then you quote it. Okay? All right, by the way, we do political disclosure statements. We have them, we can review yours, we can help you. Okay?
Right.
ShareBuilder will calculate rates and put them on a card. We call it a rate card. Think of it, though, as an internal document communicating to your sellers what the lowest rate acceptable to sell is. It is going to look, Austin, show them a rate card. Now, do not have any reaction to the exact rates. Look at the concept. Okay? It's all right. You can just leave it here.
Okay.
Okay, so it says in these weeks the bottom rate is 160. In these weeks it's 240, and in this week it's 280. This is not a rate card. It's an internal guide telling salespeople what the bottom rate is.
Yeah, they could sell at a higher rate, obviously.
That's right. And if they sell at 160, then it would be, in this case, a section 2. Okay?
Got it.
This is a sectioning and official station rate card. This is an internal communication card to your sellers. They're different. This doesn't explain whether it's preemptible or non-preemptible. That does. That's how they work. This is published usually once. This is published every week. This is not available for, you don't have to show the FCC this usually. You don't have to show clients this. It's an internal document. Okay?
Don, but experience tells me, give this to a sales staff, they'll go immediately to that rate.
Yep.
Yep.
I agree.
So how does the LSM get them to sell at higher rates?
All right, let me ask you this. There's more than one way to do this system. There are benefits both ways. Okay? They're negative both ways. The question is, what is the best system? Here are the benefits of giving them the bottom rate. You're in a small market. What is critical to your success is making sales calls and developing new business. If you give Rod a rate card and he is negotiating every deal with people, I want you to do a mathematical calculation of the cost involved of having somebody worth $200 per hour sitting down and reviewing every deal with somebody who is worth $100 an hour. Here is the benefit of having Rod do rates. The benefit is he has better judgment than they do. Here's the negative. He spends all his time doing rates rather than teaching and training how to sell, doesn't see clients as much, and they have to come to him for every real rate negotiation. Very time intensive. In a small market, we recommend you give them the bottom rate. And then what you do is you hold them accountable. Look, I know this buy. You could have gotten 5 at 200, you went to 150. You get an F on playing poker there. Okay? You make your standards. I expect you to have a brain and to use it. Going to the bottom is what the straw man would do in The Wizard of Oz. Is that the right man?
Yeah.
Okay? He didn't have a brain, did he? Okay?
Although he came up with the most good suggestions in the movie, which is ironic.
Which was?
He had the good ideas in the movie.
We
We digress.
I think it'd be more like the lion. He was scared of everything.
Oh, wait a minute, I like the Tin Man.
Well, of course, things of this political, this is for political, right?
No.
This is not, this is just a regular standard. Okay. On that one, you leave that wide open, okay?
What do you mean by wide open?
Well, you said to leave the last one, you could put a,
Yeah.
you could put an estimate on there.
You
So
could put an
they-
estimate
They
on.
still have to buy the same rate, lowest unit rate is in there, right?
They can buy. Yes, they have to get. Okay?
And you help us out with the lowest unit rate for,
We won't tell you the lowest unit rate.
okay,
You'll have to go into VCI and look at it. Okay?
okay.
On every line, every week. Okay? What we will do though is, we will create an auctioning process that has the opportunity to control the junk so that that rate didn't get too low, theoretically. Before you sell a single spot in the third week in October, you'll know a year ahead what we recommend as the bottom rate there. So it keeps junk from getting in there if you'll enforce it.
Our intent isn't to enforce it.
I know.
We're not going through all this for nothing. We're gonna make it happen.
Questions on this?
And when you, in establishing them, you'll be obviously very much involved, you've got to factor, for lowest unit rate, to factor in all these no-charge spots.
You're
Come up with-
supposed to do that. And, just so everybody knows, the FCC rules say that if you give them no charge spots in January for an annual buy, that has to be amortized against every spot bought for the year to calculate the lowest unit rate. Now, I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on television, but let me just alert you to the law. If you load a ton of spots for Ford into January, and that is an annual agreement, the technicality of the law says every no-charge spot has to have an amortization attached to the contract clarifying how that impacts the LUR in the month of October.
Yep.
Okay?
Can you say that 3 times real quick?
No. That means no-charge spots are an incredible hassle if you want to be perfectly legal. Okay? And, okay? Okay. Let's go back then. ShareBuilders logo is a triangle with 3 points. The first point on the triangle is a price plan. This is your price plan. Okay? The second point on the triangle is demand. So let's go to forecast. Let's go to third quarter. Now, this is local. You have national, local internet, national internet, local political, and national political. So you have 6 types of revenue. Okay? This is a pricing target. Let's leave that on there. Any questions about that?
Pricing target, what, and that's July, 227,000?
Do not consider that the Bible. Consider that an estimate by rational people who may not have all the information they need. The next line is a forecast or an actual. Forecast could be what you're telling corporate. Senate, it could be what you're telling Ron. Okay? Pricing target doesn't have to be exactly the forecast. There's your final from last year. Percent change. If you make the forecast on line 2, what's the percent change to last year?
Below 11%.
Why is it down? That's the question.
Well, it could have something to do with macroeconomics. Could have something to do with disrupted operation. You have 2 new people in the operation. Could be because Ford and General Motors are in real trouble and their dealers are in trouble. Could be ratings.
Could be adjusted months for our budgets. I mean,
Well,
You know, Don,
could be a bad estimate.
who factors all these dynamics?
Austin and Senna. We'll show you how.
We
So
do
you're
do
the blank.
we do this for a living, so
Be patient here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm just saying. I'm not criticizing. We're on chapter 1, and you're on chapter 4. Percent pacing is pretty obvious. Here's your booked revenue today. You send us the pacing report, and we enter that. Here's same day last year. Do you do a bottom-up forecast by salespeople? Do salespeople give you a forecast? Okay. You plug that in. Let's say that July's number is 50,000. Then your bottom-up forecast is below it at 217. Okay? Forecast from pacing. Dollars to final.
I know what that is.
You use dollars to final?
Uh-huh. I just learned it, coming here is the first time I never used it, and that's why I'm kind of proud that I actually know what it is.
Adjusted dollars to final. You can't use that unless you are estimating the size of the market and the share, and you're a non-audited station. So it's hard to use that.
How are we not audited?
Do you get an audit?
Hungerford.
There was a breakdown because we asked for audits and we're told you're non-audit market. Great, fabulous. We have more work to do.
I am sorry about that. No, we belong to Hungerford.
Yeah. Okay, great. Hungerford's a broadcast calendar audit, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Didn't you say it's about?
Excellent. We like that. Okay. There's your budget. When we get your audit, we'll be able to estimate the market and your shares. Okay? The best long-term forecast method. Well, you're going to have a holding capacity model. By the way, I know it's rude, but you notice I'm squeezing every moment in I can here. I'm eating and talking at the same time. I apologize.
All right, you used to got a pickle, I didn't get pickle.
I'm usually in a pickle.
kind of laid back. I mean, he can call you dad if he wants to.
There you go. I want to be his dad someday. What was I
I
saying?
just want your Rolodex.
The best long-term forecast?
The best long-term forecast method, long-term meaning more than 90 days, is a macro approach. How big is the market and what share can we get? Why? Those two are very stable variables. Markets don't go from plus 30 to minus 30. These days they're going from plus 5 to minus 15, but they're still more stable than some other variables. Shares are quite stable. You usually don't go from a 20 share to a 15. You might go from a 20 to an 18.5, but you don't usually drop or gain 3 or 4 share points. So if we're forecasting October, November, December, our best methodology of that is probably a macro approach. There is another concept that is applicable, and that concept basically says the recent past is the best predictor of the near-term future. So in other words, if second quarter we're finishing at -3, until you have evidence that that is wrong, the best forecast to assume is a -3. Okay?
You know, that just doesn't sit well in my spirit.
I know.
I mean, I know the point you're trying to make, but it's so against my
All right.
nature.
Here's what I want you to think about on forecast.
You gotta make up that -3, period, end of conversation, it's gotta get made up somewhere.
I want you to think about
I mean, hey.
what Bill Lamb wants in his general sales manager as personality. Okay? Now, when Senna is with salespeople talking about programming and selling, Bill wants the biggest optimist ever. We can do this, let's go, let's go, let's go.
That's it.
Huh?
You got her personality.
Okay?
That nailed down perfectly.
Now, when Bill asks you to estimate third quarter performance, what does he want?
Real,
He wants the most pragmatic, logical, unemotional
absolutely.
animal that he can create.
Yep.
You have to have 2 hats. Okay? When you're forecasting, I want you to listen real closely to these words and respond to them. Okay? I hope I can be plus 20. What do you think? Is that a good forecast?
No,
Why?
it's based on emotion versus the real numbers and the black and white of it all.
It's a human desire. I hope. I want plus 15. We have a chance at plus 12.
It's still,
We may be plus 13. It would be nice if we were plus 25.
yeah, it would.
Okay? Now listen to these words.
I would do a happy dance on the conference room table for that one.
Those are all horrible forecast methods.
Absolutely.
You're forecasting your hopes, your dreams, your wants.
Desire, all human emotion.
Now listen to these words. I think we'll be at least minus 20. I am fearful we're going to be minus 22.
Based off the same thing.
Too pessimistic.
Well, yeah, it's still emotion too.
One is a desire. You should not forecast your hopes. You should not forecast your fears.
Did the
What
black and white of it.
What you should do is you should crystallize in your mind an image, a bell curve of probable outcomes. Okay? I could be 200,000 in June, and I have a 2% chance of that. Okay?
Mhm.
No, I'm sorry, let's go to June. Let's go to July, Austin. I could be 185,000 here. And I have a 2% chance. I could be 295 and I have a 2% chance. All right? I could be 210 and I have a 10% chance. I could be 275 and I have a 10% probability. Okay? I could be 230 or 227 and that has a 40%.
Well, yeah, that's what we're
And
gonna
here
go.
is a 17%. It's a bell curve of probability.
Yeah.
It is impossible to forecast the future.
True.
There are multiple outcomes with different probabilities. What you're really seeking is the most probable.
Okay,
It's in the middle of the bell curve.
got it.
It is analytical, logical,
There it
and
is.
humanistically faulty. You're going to be wrong. So, a great forecast, though, is not hopes or fears. You're gathering data. Now, you can forecast hopes, then you'll overpromise and underdeliver. You can forecast fears, and you'll underpromise and overdeliver. You have to decide, what does Bill want? What does Ron want?
Oh, I
Now-
know, they wanted, I mean, they'd love it if I could do it to the penny.
Here's what I
So, I
Here's
mean,
what I propose. What Ron and Bill want is somebody who is so magical, they can pick any number they want, and that person will produce those results. That's not the real world.
why did
The
you need
real
that?
world is, there are things you can't control and things you can. And there are great producers who can produce more revenue, and there are people who can't produce as much. You have something very ironic in pricing. If you price to your dreams, and that is illogically high, you reduce your performance. When you price to your dreams, you overprice, costing you revenue. When you price to your fears, you underprice and cost yourself revenue. It is not that we're just logical, unemotional people, although that is true. It is
I work
just,
the best in that environment, believe it or not, because I'm emotional, so I have to take it and throw that out.
this
Out of the
is
equation
just,
goes.
this is just logic.
Right.
You have to price to pragmatism because when you overprice, you underdeliver. You de-optimize the yield. So, I'm an optimist. People don't believe it sometimes. You have to forecast to pragmatism
Got it.
if you want to have the best audit.
Okay.
So you have to ask yourself, what do I really want? Usually, you want the best audit. That's the whole goal.
Exactly. I know that's,
And in order to get there, ironically, you have to stay pragmatic. Okay?
You can't say things like, I need to make up that negative 3.5.
You can't say
somewhere
that.
else."
That's a hope. That's either a hope or a fear. If I don't make it up, I lose my job. It's going to be people are going to love that you say it. I'm going to make it up. The only way to make it up, make more sales calls, make better sales calls,
right, exactly.
make better price decisions. But you see, you can't make better price decisions
No.
if you don't understand what the pragmatic demand is.
Make more sales calls.
More sales calls is important.
I like to have better sales calls than more sales calls.
What?
Better sales calls.
Okay.
Both are important. They're probably equally weighted.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's put it this way. One call a month, while brilliantly done, may not get you where you want it. And 1,000,000 calls a month with no intelligence isn't where you want it.
Or skill.
Somewhere in between. is the rational position, isn't it? And I don't know what that is exactly. Now, the best long-term forecast method then is macro. There is another forecast method, and darn if I'm remembering the name. Anybody remember the name of that concept where the recent past is the best? Martingale.
Martingale
The
effect.
martingale effect. Gosh darn it. The martingale effect is a mathematical concept where the recent past is the best predictor of the near-term future. So if the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed yesterday at 12,100, if you're making a forecast of where it will finish at the end of the day today,
Given no new information.
with no new information at all, forecast 12.1. Okay? Or take a 100-year average and see that the average increase is a 0.1% per day accumulation, and forecast 12,105. Okay? So you take a multi-year trend of its change per day and factor that at the end. Then you also have the martingale effect. Now, we've been studying for 33 years what the best short-term method is.
Okay.
We found it about 4 or 5 years ago with the help of a guy named Paul Trelstad from Gannett. He didn't realize he helped us, but he showed us a chart that was fascinating. We started studying it and came to some conclusions. That whether you're plus 20 or minus 20, the percentage of money you have in today is very similar each of the last few years. The money comes in similarly. So, let's show you that. This is a graph using of local July. Here is where we were on March 1st as an industry. Okay? On March 1st of 2000, March 1st, 2007, the average the television station in your size market had 24% of its money in for July local. In 06, it had
Fascinating.
27%. Now look how this money came in. By the way, here's your scale in percent. You ever heard the old adage that the money comes in waves?
Mm-hmm.
Not true. Not very often. There's only a couple of months that are waves. Most of the time it comes in dribbles. Look how this came in. Dribble, 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 wave, dribble. Here's the wave. June 1st to the first day of the quarter. Notice how predictable it is both years? This is what we found by studying it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now,
So you use that to help do the forecast too?
absolutely.
Okay.
Now, here is where you were on May
May
28th of 07. Your station, this is the industry.
Yeah.
You had 58% of your finish on this date in 07. You have 84%, 81% of where you were as of, where is that, yesterday?
Yes.
Monday. Do we have a fresh,
Tuesday.
Tuesday. We don't have a fresh
20th.
skim, do we? We don't have a Thursday skim.
We didn't get fresh cases.
We could plug in this morning's. Okay? Here's where you were on the 28th of May of 08. You had 66% of our present estimate of your demand. Here's where we think, Austin and I, you might finish July at 227, meaning you have 74% of your money in. Now, why do we think that this is probable? We're looking at the industry averages, hoping or thinking, we're not hoping. Sorry, that's a misstatement. Thinking you will add 26 points of revenue and finish at 227. Why? Because the industry is generally breaking later this year because of the softness. And you have some disruption in your sales organization, new management included. So we think your business may be coming in a little later. Could be wrong. What we recommend doing is taking your bottom up, taking everything you know about what's happening. That includes things like my goods furniture was booked a year ago and it's not booked this year and it's coming in, so that's later. My Best Buy is booked this year, it wasn't a year ago, so that's earlier. So we talk about big accounts, early and late breaking, and what we basically do is we decide how many points of revenue are left. Okay? We've been doing this 33 years. Okay? In some way, we discovered this one about 5 or 6 years ago. It's the best we've seen. We use dollars to final up until about 5 years ago. This is better because it's not one number, and eventually you'll have 5 years worth of tracking here. Austin, let's go to a WFAA or a KHOU. KHOU is fine. Show them, then let's go to maybe local.
Don, I'm gonna need a bathroom break here in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, lunch got me laid down.
All right. Very good. All right. Let me just show you what. Let's put it 5 years of data up. Okay.
Okay, you want June or July?
That doesn't matter. July's fine.
Okay.
See how these are all similar percentages? This is called a booking channel. Look how close those are. That means you have as little as 3 to 5% variation here in forecast between many of these years. And
Isn't
if
that
you,
something?
yeah, it's fascinating.
Totally, I'm engrossed.
In theory, if the quarter's not breaking earlier or later, all you do is click, put them all on, Austin. Click on this button, and you move it to wherever you think it is. That's how we do a forecast. See it change up there? We don't forecast by math, we forecast by sight. All you do is drag the point to the middle if you're unsure. The middle is safe. It's your 4-year average of percentage of points that are added. Okay?
Okay, question.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I'm sitting back, okay, and I'm getting ready to go into my weekly meeting with Ron.
Yeah.
Rodney has given me his local projections.
Yeah.
Or forecasts. I have that. I have my national projections. Right? I have my Bob. And I'm sitting there, and I'm looking at this. It should come pretty darn close to where, in that range, right?
Okay. Let me propose a different idea.
Okay, that's why I'm asking, I mean, because I'm like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't seem even probable.
When are you gonna meet with Ron?
Monday,
What time?
2:30?
Okay. At 9 a.m. on Monday morning, you and Austin and Rod sit down on a conference call. You do a forecast of demand for which he's going to calculate rates. You know what your numbers are and the variabilities and risk when you walk into Ron at 2:30. You don't do it independent. You don't do it by yourself. You use his expertise to help guide you. And he's in on every meeting. And you do it as a group. It's not his decision. It's yours. You can run it as a dictatorship, or you can do it as a democracy. Okay?
Or somewhere in between.
Or in between. Okay?
I'm probably somewhere in between.
Let's go back. All right, so let's take a bathroom break. We'll come back. We'll do forecast. We're way ahead of schedule. We will then do charts, supply demand. Okay? And we think that you could add more points than a year ago because of that. All right? Let's look at September. Okay, we think you'll add about the same points as a year ago and finish at about 325. Okay? Now, I want you to think about risk. Okay? I want you to think about risk. And what if you're a crazy mathematician and you were studying risk? What if you're saying risk of a stock going up and down? Then what you would do is measure that stock's performance relative to industry averages and assign it a beta. And that beta would be a mathematical quantification of risk. What you're going to do is you're going to get together, and my recommendation is you do it as a threesome or a foursome once a week. At the same time, same day, you're going to forecast demand. Then you're going to have a rate card sent to you and you're going to execute it. It's going to say the bottom rate at 5 p.m. is 270 or whatever, or 6 p.m. What if that rate is too low? What if it's too low because the forecast was wrong or our judgment was wrong? How much risk do you have? Well, to answer that, think of that you're going to quote that rate for 5 days and get a chance to change it. All right? So how much revenue do you write in a typical 5 days for the breaking quarter? The answer is about 1.2%. Okay? You take 13 weeks times 5 means 65 days with 2 holidays is 63. And you divide that into 100 and you come out with 1.4%. After the quarter's broke, the annuals are late, but the annuals are 25% of your business. 100 minus 25 becomes 75. 75 divided by the number of selling days gives you about 1.2% per day. So if you go quote a week's worth of rates, you have about 6% risk. That's all. Forecast is too high, the rate is too high. A week later, nobody bought it. We'll reforecast the station. It'll reprice the price and adjust. So what you need to understand is the intensity of study that we have done to develop a system that reduces risk. And the way you do it is by making small changes early rather than big changes late. We start managing, we know exactly what we think we need to average when we start, and we make small adjustments early, not big adjustments late. If the forecast is 227 and it's wrong by 10%, it's not impossible. 10% is a big difference, but we don't really have to be perfect with any forecast. What we have to do is be close enough to keep us from losing control of our inventory. And the margin of error is quite wide early. If we're off 10% on an October forecast and we can catch it by late August, it's okay.
Question. In the rate structure, which we're changing every week, theoretically, how does this set with the salespeople? I mean, 1 week they're going out with a set of rates, and is their position is that these rates are good for only 1 week?
Yep. Our recommendation is, if it's the breaking quarter,
Right.
what you do is you say, Ron, our station's really hot. There's a lot of demand. Things are really going well here, and we have a really good deal for you. And I've just negotiated this deal, and if you can book this in the next 5 days, I can honor this rate.
Okay, because a lot of the local accounts in particular, we're looking 2-3 weeks prior to making a decision, right?
Yeah.
Well, some of that.
Create a sense of urgency and
You
make
create a
it
sense
faster, but there's still gonna be that small percentage that you're not gonna get the answer to.
Well, you can adjust the rate that you give them with where you think it's gonna go too.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
it's,
true.
I mean, you know, and also on the avails, one domain can't do this, but if you put on there, these rates are only good for 7 business days,
Yep.
period, end of conversation, then it's part of mode of doing business. Are there gonna be exceptions to that? I
Sure.
think that absolutely there are. Is it going to be general practice? No.
Let me walk you through then this simple idea. Incentives and disincentives. If I give you a rate and I say, yeah, you can buy this rate anytime you want, you have no incentive to buy right now, and you have no disincentive to wait. So, how do you handle rates where a buyer wants to hold it? The first thing you do is you say to the buyer, when are you going to make this buy? Okay? Well, about 2 or 3 weeks from now. Great. My recommendation is, if you're going to make that buy 2 or 3 weeks from now, let's talk right before you make that buy. And let's go through it and make sure that I'm giving you the lowest possible price that supply demand allows at that time. Why do you want to give them a negotiated rate now that they're not going to act on for 3 weeks? You're taking undue risk. You're in the futures business to some small degree. So the first thing is, don't assume that you have to quote your bottom rate. In fact, you don't want to. You want to be the last person in to negotiate. So let the other guy quote his rate. You quote 150. You think you're going to be able to go to 120. You ask for that last phone call. It's the first idea. The second idea is you say to them, huh?
Positioning is everything.
It's disincentive, incentive. The next thing you do is you say, what do I want? If you want an order early, you create an incentive for them. So, Julie, here's the deal. If you need a rate that you can buy any time in the next 3 weeks for this schedule that runs in mid-July, I need 150. Okay? Because our inventory will get tight right at some point, and that's what I'll need if you wait 3 weeks. But Julie, if you'll give me an order for within the next 5 days, I'll do 120. It's your choice.
Will it run at 120?
Julie asked, is this a non-preemptible spot? No, Julie, it's not. But I know my inventory. I know it well. This is not a rate that I think has a high degree of risk of high preemption. You may get 5% preemption on the schedule. You may get some. But I'm giving you, Julie, here, the lowest possible price that supply demand will allow. If you want 0% preemption, I can do that too. My question is, based upon what I understand needs, is you really feel and you're willing to risk preemption. Now help me understand, am I on target? You'd rather have the supply demand allow, accept a and have the risk of a little. Why? Gives you the most. Well, you got the decision, and I the same. Can I? Do you want 5 or? Okay. About the vacuum influence what it or not. The way you are now. Okay? Demand is not going to change much because they don't have alternatives. So one of the things to think about is the more competition you have, the more price sensitive your business becomes. You have direct competition in television stations, but you have radio, you have newspaper, you have outdoor, okay? So, what we want to do is recognize that ours is a highly attractive business, advertising, and we have lots of competition, and there are lots of choices. So we are a relatively price-sensitive business, okay? Especially with demand as soft as it is in the industry now. So what I'm going to show you is the mathematical case for lowering rates. Here is the first week of second quarter. And this is one show, a talk show with 100 units as its capacity. And the average rate is being proposed. Rod has come into Senna and said, I think we should charge $100 for this. And Senna says, at that price point, what is your expected quantity demand? Rod goes back and looks at his history, looks at his sellout rate levels, looks at his average rates, looks at his rating, looks at this year's rating, and comes back and says, Senna, I think at $100 we're going to sell 80 units. Okay? So this means that the time period will do $8,000 of revenue. Senna looks at that and says, what? How can I make more money?
No, I'm not thinking about the 20 units that are sitting there. What am I, how do I max those out?
Well, here is the idea. Like an airplane that has a regional jet that has 50 seats. What happens if you have 20 seats that go unsold? You lost money on those. You lost potential money. So you're on the right track. So what we want to do is we want to consider how can we take an asset, 20 units, and convert it into a revenue stream. Okay? All right? Now, Adam Smith, your friend, said, if you lower price, demand will go up. Right? So the question is, how much should we lower price? Well, I've been studying elasticity for as much as 33 years, attempting to quantify that. And it's difficult to quantify, but here's what we have found. For the average television station, when you change price by 10% without your competitor knowing it, and by the way, most of the time they really can't figure it out easily. It's indirect. The buyer lies so much about what people are priced at, you don't really know for sure where your competitors are. When you change price by 10% up or down, demand changes by 20. Double that amount. Okay?
Well, you said up or down?
If you lower price,
That's where I was at too.
if you lower price by 10%, demand goes up by 20%. If you raise price 10%, demand goes down by 20%.
I understand that.
Okay? It is because that band is very narrow. Okay? Where you have an effective buying zone for buyers. Because point levels are not high enough, they have to buy everybody. If you overprice or underprice yourself, you have penalties. So, we want to hit 100% sellout here. So we need to sell 25% more units to do that. So we're going to lower price by 12%, have demand go up double that by 25 approximately, and do $8,800 worth of revenue and make 10% more money. This is the basic mathematical proof of how you make more money by running at high sellout levels. Okay? It is fundamental to strategy. Okay? If you're running 80% sold out and you're throwing your chest out about how great a broadcaster you are by having high rates, you're back in 1970 or 60. That's not today. The science of yield management says I lower price and attract new buyers either from my competition or from other mediums or other alternatives. So this is the mathematical case for lowering rates and when to lower them. You lower rates when when supply exceeds demand. Do you see how looking at the sellout level and saying we are at 80% of sellout level, so supply is exceeding demand. Got it? Okay. Here is then the mathematical case for raising rates. This is the third week in May. You've got Mother's Day, you've got graduation, you've got springtime, you've got vacations, you got auto sales, you got rating sweeps that attracts demand. And Rod comes in and says, I think we ought to charge $100. And Senna says, at this price point, what is your quantity demanded? And Rod goes back and looks at the historical and says 120 units of demand. Okay, so you can't run 120 units of demand. So this is not $12,000 worth of revenue, it is $10,000. Now Senna is going to examine this. By the way, you won't do any of this. ShareBuilder will do it for you. Okay?
I like that answer.
But if you were doing it by hand, Senna would examine this situation and say, if the elasticity factor of this time period is 2.0, which means quantity demand is changing twice as fast as price, and that's the industry average, I need to knock off 20 units, that's 16.7% of my demand. I'm going to take half of 16% and I'm going to lower price by 8%. I'm going to raise price by 8%, knock demand down by 16, and end up making $10,800. 8% more revenue.
Okay, I have questions.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, when did you make that change in price?
You make that change in price before you ever quoted a single unit or sold it. And if you were wrong, you updated it with new price decisions as soon as the were wrong. Okay.
So you make that change right from the start?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is
That was the same.
Yeah, this is Rod coming in October saying, next May, I think we ought to be at $100. By the way, I'm not trying to set you up as the bad guy with all the wrong recommendations.
I just want the same answer she got. Is the system gonna do it for me? Okay.
Absolutely. Okay? All right? So this is
Well,
an
from what I
8%.
understand, just to make it very clear, I'll be working with Austin on a weekly basis and establishing a weekly rate card.
You'll actually be working with Austin to estimate demand, and his formulas will calculate rate for you. Okay?
So you'll be getting a weekly rate card by me.
Now, you notice then that we have a recommendation. The recommendation number 3. The first recommendation was play poker and look at each buy individually. Recommendation number 2 was when supply exceeds demand, lower price. Okay?
When demand exceeds supply, that was right.
Okay, now
This is recommendation 2?
this is recommendation 2. Yeah, here we go. When supply exceeds demand, lower rates. But don't lower rates to everyone. Lower rates to price-sensitive customers who are not maxed out. If somebody's buying 5 a week at $7.29, don't take it down 10%. You'll cost yourself money. Only lower price to that person buying 0, 1, or 3, right? Okay, that's recommendation number 2. Number 1 is treat everything as an individual decision. Number 2 is lower price to price-sensitive customer when supply exceeds demand. Number 3, when demand exceeds supply, raise rates, but not on everyone. You raise rates on the lowest paying customer because your yield gain is disproportionately high by doing that. Don't take a high rate with a 33 share and raise the highest rate and cost yourself on the best piece of business. Walk away from the crappiest pieces of business by raising price on the cheap junk. Okay? All right. Does that generate any questions? Okay, that is the basis of elasticity. Does anybody need a bathroom break? It's highly variable in our business. The inventory we have is perishable. Once that log is printed and that 30-second spot is gone, you can never go back and get it. You're in a competitive business, many alternatives, so you're a highly elastic marketplace. Now, this is how demand looks, looking at a typical television station between August and December. And you notice that this is the dollar demand on the station on the right, and here are the weeks. So you have about $800,000 a week on this station, and these 2 weeks are second and third week of November, right before,
This is our data?
no,
Oh,
this is a typical
okay,
one.
okay, I just wanna make sure I was.
No, you're not doing 800,000 a week. Okay,
That's what I was like, are you kidding?
but what is amazing is if you took all of our clients, which is 205 clients or so, their demand will look very similar. Why? It's driven by holidays and retail. The demand in radio is almost identical as television, and it's predictable. Here is the week of December 25th. The only people on are autos, almost, okay? Now notice the mathematical difference between this and this. This week is half of that, approximately, or that's double this, okay? That's how much variation you have on this station. Now let's look then at the ideas that we already know. Earlier recommendations. Unsold spots will cost you money. That was the mathematical case for lowering rates. Okay? By the way, if a station says, we don't have any preemption, so we don't have any yield management problems, they're absolutely wrong. They do have a yield management problem. Okay? They're running too open, letting their competitor take too much revenue share. Okay? Oversold time periods will cost you money. That's why you saw the mathematical proof of how you make more money by raising price when demand exceeds supply. So you already know those. Therefore, if you want, we want high sellouts every week.
Right.
In effect, what we're managing is we're managing the sellout level. We don't want to be 88% sold out. We want to be 95 plus. We don't want to be 120% sold out. We want to be 95 plus. Okay?
Question,
Yes.
if we were, in terms of making money, 120% sold out.
Yeah.
To take that other 20% and offer make goods to other day parts,
Yes.
which are not sold out,
Yes.
is another way to make money.
Yes. And if the buyer will tolerate that preemption without penalizing you, that is a brilliant way of doing it. Okay? But you have to have several buts there.
Yeah.
First, they have to be willing to do that.
And most of the time they won't shift day parts.
Well, local advertisers, and some of these local
Oh, I
folks.
see what you're saying.
And secondly is you must have something else, somewhere else to make the money. Okay? To make it up, to do the make good. So if a station is chronically oversold everywhere, that doesn't work as well. Okay?
And the idea is to be have high sellout throughout the day parts, so that could be a challenge.
Yeah, depends. Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't a challenge. Sometimes you have, everybody wants to buy heroes.
Okay.
And you can oversell that baby and cram them into secondary programs with make goods, and buyers are okay.
That's what Ron is.
But less so now than ever before.
Because of the post factor.
You have a post problem, but you also have a bigger systemic problem in the industry. That is this. Advertising agencies' profits are under pressure. They have more and more alternatives of where to put this money. And their biggest issue is time. And when you make them approve a make good, you are cutting into their profitability. And they're screaming at us as an industry right now. It starts with Kathy Crawford at Mindshare, and it goes to Kathy McCauley at GM Planworks. We are making the process of running schedules as an industry too complex for them. They hate the make goods. They're too time consuming, and they're not tolerating them very well. Okay?
They're looking at alternatives too.
Yeah. They need help. They want to keep buying television, but their problems are they can buy network television simpler than they can buy spot. They make one buy. It's not preemptible. They have guarantees, and it's more profitable. We have a big problem in the industry that we need to address. Okay?
They're expecting upgrades with the preamps now. They're not, I mean, they're not expecting alternatives, they want an upgrade. So if they bought, an example, what I've found is if they've bought Heroes and it was 8 points, then they want 10 to 12 points in the make good.
And that's basically just a negotiation. But what you do have is still that big problem. That big problem is that advertising agencies are not as profitable as they want to be or need to be. And we as an industry have been lax by just saying, I can sell it and sell a make good, and our customer is rebelling. Now, let me tell you a story about that I want you to think about. What's the best steak place in Decatur?
Jimmy Ryan's, right?
Quarters?
All right.
I'd have to agree, quarters.
Of course, okay.
Okay. You order from the menu and you get a big steak and you get a lobster.
Oh, I don't think so. No, no
All
longer.
right. Let's go to Morton Steakhouse in Chicago. Okay?
Okay.
I'll drive.
I was in Morton's recently, and on the menu it said steak and surf and turf, right? $49, steak and lobster. And so I ordered it, and they were bringing it to the table, and it was sizzling. You could hear this thing sizzling before they ever got within 20 feet of you. Man, I could just taste that.
I'm right there.
And they put it in front of me, and it was just gorgeous. Okay? And I picked up the knife and fork, and I was about to cut into it, and a waiter came running across the room and says, "Time out. Somebody else is going to pay $53, and they've preempted you."
Primo example.
Now, if you had a
They'd like to get
choice,
that off my table. Yeah.
if you had a choice of where to go to eat steak in Chicago, and someone else would promise you a steak at a price and deliver it, would you tolerate that kind of service? You need to understand that our clients are not tolerating the lack of service in this industry. They're rebelling. Okay? And if we ignore their rebellion, we're taking a risk. Now, you're not a television station that has very many preemptions, so I'm preaching to the choir. But I just tell you that, as an industry, there are some big issues we need to understand that have ramifications if we don't solve them. GM Planworks doesn't have the people to take care of these make goods. Okay? Mindshare doesn't have the people. Okay? And
Question for you.
yeah.
Aren't they a big part of the problem for driving down the prices for all these years?
Yeah.
I mean, because they want to over-deliver for the client, give them the DRPs and stuff they need. I mean, it seems to me that they're a big part of the problem, and then we're going against a system that they kind of created.
Yes, that's true. So what we're going to do is punish them for being tough negotiators and end up driving the business away from us.
Okay,
Okay?
that makes good sense.
Okay? Yeah. But they drive price. But we have the lack of integrity and the lack of sophistication of knowing where that spot won't run. And do we fully disclose to them, look, Heroes is probably, I'll sell it to you for 800, but it probably isn't going to run or whatever. Okay? And if we purposely say, well, we can just oversell it and sell make goods, are we being honest with them? Now, the agencies have generally tolerated preemption. There is a meeting of the minds of these agencies. They want something changed, and it's big. Okay? All right? Now, you don't have this as a major problem. Okay. Any other thoughts on that or questions? How do we get equal sellout levels every week with supply fixed and demand variable? The answer is you must tier rates up and down. Okay? It's the only mathematical alternative. So, let me show you that. Your average rates have to take the same shape of a chart that shows your demand. So, here's the shape of your demand. I want you to see how the pattern. Okay? This looks like a camel, this section right here, doesn't it? All right? I don't know what that looks like. Okay? Let's go look at what your average rate needs to look like. It is going to be identical. You're going to see this camel. That means we're $820 here and $400 here. Unless you have Super Bowl or Olympics or something special, you have the same number of units. If demand is going to be double here of this, and if you want to be 95% sold out here and 95% sold out here, it means you must sell different rates in those weeks. Okay?
How are buyers responding to in the other stations with, this week, this is the rate, this week, this is the rate, this week is the, because most of them, I mean, from my just personal past experience, you get some who get it, and they're all over it.
A buyer's response will be entirely a function of the skill and training of the salesperson making the presentation to them. Presented poorly, they will never buy tiered rates, ever, ever, ever. Presented perfectly, they'll buy them every time.
Because it's lower preemption rate.
There has to be a benefit for the buyer,
Absolutely.
okay? Because tiering rates is more work for her. So you have to give it a benefit. So if somebody comes to me and says, my buyers won't buy tiered rates, what I would secretly say to myself, but not embarrass them, then it means you don't have the skills necessary to persuade her why she ought to choose tiered rates. The problem is you need more training, okay? Or an open mind. Tiering rates is hard. It is not easy. It's more work for sales. It's more work for buyers. It's more lines on a contract for traffic. But there are benefits for clients. What are those benefits? Gives them choices. They have a choice between cheaper price or exact dates. Do you want first 2 weeks of June at $100 or the last 2 weeks of June at $150? Okay, that's a benefit. That's a choice. Buyers like choice.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Yes.
What about, in January, when the buyer buys for 52 weeks, you don't know what your rates are gonna be all for 52 weeks.
Not in the past.
But you will now.
Effective Monday morning, you'll know what your price is the third week of December.
Okay.
How much does an bill with the price it's set?
How much what?
How much does the bill that has a set price on there on the tier level and stuff that doesn't get approved and sent back, say, a week and a half later after the rate card's already changed again, affect the system?
Well,
Because you don't wanna go back, a week later, and, okay, now these are the new week prices. So
Right.
you can get your bales in.
Here's how we recommend that, okay? If you're selling in the present quarter,
Okay.
okay, and it's breaking, then what we recommend that you do is that you fully disclose to a buyer where you stand with rates. And here might that disclosure be.
Okay.
Look, you're buying a schedule for, today is May 1st, and you're buying a schedule for late May, okay? I'm gonna give you the lowest possible price that supply demand will allow. And in doing so, I have a choice here, Rod. I can give you a high price that you can wait till the last minute and use, or I can give you the lowest possible price that supply demand will allow, but then I need to date that spot, that quotation is when it's no longer viable. One of the two, okay? So, if you want, for instance, the lowest price, I'll give you $100 and you gotta buy it in the next week. Or, you can take $150 and that'll clear at the last minute. Okay? What you do then is, you try to reduce your risk of getting an inventory problem by making anything that is going to be, have a potential tightness, a 5-day window. Okay? Now, if they're buying fourth quarter now, you might give them a 3-week window or a 4-week window. Okay? Why? Because you're not going to get tight. The biggest issue about fourth quarter would be, I just got the new rating book and I went from a 2 to a 5. I want to be able to get that rate up. So what you do is, you don't want to try to make it bureaucratic, but you guarantee your rates for as many days as you can without making the risk to the station of getting their inventory screwed up badly. Okay? In the breaking quarter, it's usually 5 working days is what we recommend. Okay?
Yeah, it makes complete sense. I did in the past. I just put dates and races in all the time as a salesperson. Don't want to be difficult. There still are some people just like chasing down copy. You can call them like for 2 weeks every day of the world trying to get. It doesn't affect the system much. So that's what you're saying. It's for the rates.
No. Well, and again, here's what's very important to understand about ShareBuilder.
Okay.
We are not in charge of your station. We have no authority and no control. We're recommenders. Okay? Senna is in charge. You're in charge.
Okay.
Ron's in charge.
Okay.
We don't make policy. We recommend ideas. Okay? You decide. Okay? What we do is we say, here's the ramification of this policy, and here's the benefit of this policy. Okay? And we will talk a little about the risk of rate quotations, I think, later this morning.
Okay.
So, in terms of benefits, this is not, I am powerful W-A-N-D, you're going to buy the way I want to sell. This is, I'll sell it any way you want to buy it. You want one flat rate, $150. If you can buy 2 rates, I'll do 100 these 2 weeks and 150 here. It's up to you. And I've always found you to be a really conscientious buyer who wants to do what's best for the client, even if it requires more work. So it's up to you here, Rod. You can do it either way. You can pay $150 for all 4 weeks, or you can save $50 to spot these 2. And you can buy more these 2 weeks if you want, that's really cheap, and less this, and really make it efficient. It's up to you. Now there's another benefit. If you'll tier these rates, where I get $150 in those auto weeks that are strong, you'll have less preemption in those auto weeks. Okay? So your schedule will run better. And Kathy Crawford, if you want less make goods, tier rates, and your schedule will have less make goods.
Regarding packaging, it goes without saying that you're averaging the rates automatically. So when you present a package with a bottom line of $10,000, and you've taken, that prime spot and average, $400 for 4 weeks, $600 for the next 8 weeks, or whatever it is.
Yep.
And then when you write the deal, then you write the tiered rates.
Well, let's talk through that.
Okay.
let's talk through two different ways or three different ways of handling that situation. Here's the first one. I ignore the concept of tiering, and I'm going to use the same rate every week. Well, that's an F. Okay? The next way of doing it, I'm going to quote them an average price. I'm going to do, I'll let them decide what to buy and how many to buy. After I get the buy, I'm going to break out the rates for them. Okay? What will happen usually in that situation is they will not buy more in your soft weeks nor less in your strong weeks if you present it that way. They have no incentive to. Okay? So that's a C+. Alternative 3, I give you a $150 rate these weeks and a $100 rate, and you buy more in the $100 than the $150. That's an A+. Why? Because the basic idea is we have to sell more units in the soft weeks and less units in the strong weeks. And if you present it either of those first two ways, you're not going to accomplish it. The third way is, I'm a salesperson putting a package together for you, and I've bought heavier in these soft weeks. That's an A++.
Yeah, in the package.
Okay? So giving one rate to the buyer and splitting it out after it doesn't really get us where we want to be. Okay? Why? Because you're still going to have auto weeks with 25% more demand than non-auto weeks. Your swing week is still going to end up wide open first week of the month, or the last week, depending on how you describe it. Okay? Okay. There are benefits for sellers. More money. You want to make more commission? Less time on make goods. Happier clients in the long run. Maybe not in the short run. Okay? They may beat the heck out of you about, I don't want to buy 2 rates. It's too hard. But in the long run, their schedule runs better, they get a better buy for their clients, they keep the clients, etc. Okay? So tiering rates up and down is hard to do. It is absolutely fundamental. It's like taking a shower before you come to work. It's like shaving. It's like brushing your teeth. You can't get by in yield management without tiering. You have to entice a buyer to want to use different rates. And a lot of what we will do this afternoon is helping salespeople do tiered rates, if indeed that is an issue.
You focus on that with the sales.
Yeah.
That's great.
We'll spend a lot of time with what I've just done with you. Okay? We'll redo those exact situations. Okay. Next, Austin. Let's go to the concept of auctioning, number 4. Okay? What we want to talk about is the misallocation effect of supply and demand. Now, we talked about the substitution effect. We talked about the conservation effect. This is the misallocation effect. The misallocation effect is where I have sold heroes to Ford on a 2-year annual at a really cheap rate, and I can't clear, because I have preempted them so many times I can't preempt them anymore. I can't clear heroes at the last minute for premium rates because of that decision to sell early too low. Okay? So it's overselling. That's misallocation effect. What I want to do with the concept of auction is to look at 4 possible spots in heroes in the 3rd week of May, and it is right now October 15th. We haven't made or September 15th, and we haven't made a single price quotation for 2009. What I want you to do is to take every advertiser in Decatur, Champaign, Springfield, and all the small communities around it, and if there are 300 of them, ask you, how many people would buy Heroes if it were $1? All of them. In fact, at $1, if I could buy Heroes on WEEK in Peoria for $1, I would produce a commercial and wish Linda a happy birthday, and I would buy spots on the air to wish my wife birthday if they were that cheap. That's elasticity. At a certain price, you bring in more buyers for different usage of the product. Okay? What we're going to do then is take just advertisers, not viewers, and we're going to rank those buys. We're going to stack them up with the high bid at the top. And the highest bidder for a spot in the third week of May is $1,200. And we're going to have a yellow little bracket that looks a little bit like a traffic system and holes and slots. And we're going to put then the 4 highest bids into those spots theoretically before we ever start. Okay? Everybody tracking with me? Now, here you go. Keep going, Austin. But Ford comes in and you decide to put this $600 spot in here and the $700 spot for General Motors. Because you failed to understand what the high 4 bids were, you take that early bid. And these 2 spots, which should have been up there then, are dislocated. Okay? That is the misallocation effect. Accepting an early buy. Okay? Summary is next.
Okay.
Okay. What we do in effect is we project in simple form what that low rate is likely to be at all times and create a rate card calculated against that low rate, and we call it the bottom rate. It's our recommendation for the bottom rate in there. And what we want to do is we want to ignore when a buy is bought. Early is not radically different than late. There's still an auction that is occurring. We want to make sure that we're not over-enticed by early. Okay? We want to look at them as just bids. And if the lowest price in there is $900, why would we take $899 for a spot? Okay? That would be illogical. So this is the concept of auctioning, and that is, if I can sell it out at $900, I am not going to allow a salesperson to take the rate down to $899 to max out that buyer in that time period. Remember your first idea of maxing out? And there was an asterisk that says, don't forget about auctioning. Now, if that seller is looking at what is right for that buy, they must also look at what is right for the station. And what is right for the station is to not take a lower price than the lowest bid for that time period. Okay, now Senna, you missed a little of this.
Apologize.
Could you please explain number 2 again? Ignore when buys are placed.
Yeah,
View them
As a
simple,
pricer.
probable.
yeah. As a television station, we should know where our lowest price is before we negotiate those early annuals. Okay?
That makes sense.
That's what the concept is simply. Is just because it's early doesn't mean it's not a part of an auction. Senna's job in pricing is chief auctioneer. Okay? She's going to gather every one of the potential buyers in the marketplace in a big auditorium, and she's going to bid on 2,300 spots times 52 weeks about 115,000 pieces of inventory.
Okay.
But it's not going to be in real time. If it were an auction, Rod raises his hand and says, I'll bid 1,000, and Valerie says, I'll do 1,050. That's a real-time auction. We operate in a time-lapse auction. Ford buys 2 years ahead. General Motors starts and buys their annual by December. Best Buy, I don't know, comes in at the last minute. What I'm wanting to do with this idea is simply say, ignore when those buys are made and placed, in theory. Think of them as simply bidders in a time-lapse auction. And what you want to do is say, if I only have 4 spots in Heroes, what's the probable low bid? Okay? And if that low bid comes at the end, I'll wait to get it, rather than taking it too cheaper.
Now, are you gonna apply tiering
Yes,
also in these
because there'll
annuals?
be a low bid for
And
the
then-
third week
right.
and a different low bid for the first week. The low bids will vary by week. So in effect, what ShareBuilder does, ShareBuilder takes history and uses math to project the low bidder for every week, for every time period, and tells you, we think this is your low bid, don't go lower. That's all we do. Then
Interesting.
we update it every week. Okay?
Now, this is all based on sellout levels,
it's all managing sellout.
sellout levels, okay.
Now, what we're also talking about here then was in this misallocation effect, you want to be able to do this before you start Senna, and you don't want to take that seller lowering price to move from 3 units per week to 5 units per week if they're violating the concept of auction. Remember when we talked about idea number 1, max out the units?
Yes.
Remember there was a white thing at the bottom that says don't ignore auctioning? Now we're going to then have a clarification of our strategy. If I can sell the last spot in that talk show at 50 bucks, and Rod has a client that's buying 3 at 50 bucks, we don't want him to go to 40 bucks and get bought. Now you're violating the concept of auctioning, which is not exactly, but it's somewhat similar at buying tomatoes for $1 and selling them at 50 cents and making it up on volume. Okay? You think, so what we're trying to do is to have a coherent strategy to produce the most revenue possible for the station. And you don't produce the most revenue possible by getting the biggest share you can get on every piece of business. Your coherent strategy is to fill up your inventory and auction the inventory off. If getting a 80 share on goods furniture gets in the way of a good share on Best Buy, we don't want that 80 share here. We want the total station share to be best. And it is accomplished by simply auctioning to the high bidders. Okay? So we want Rod to look at that and say, I'm at $65 a spot for 3. My lowest price is 50. Now what does he do? Take it down. Get the 5 per week. Okay? But if he's had 3 a week at 50, and 50 is the lowest bid for the last spot. In other words, the lowest bid that still can clear. We don't want him to take it 40, we lose 10 bucks. And the secret to yield management is making 2% more here, 3% more there, 4% more here, $10 here. You take $10 times 115,000 units per year, and you got some real money. It's $1.1 million. Or if you take sellout level from 80% to 90% on 115,000 units, that's 11,150 units more sold spots. It becomes huge. So we're being very anal. We're being very detailed on how we make $10 more.
It's like,
Okay?
it's like the concept of when you get done with your avail, go back and add $5 to every spot, because somebody's not gonna buy you because of $5.
And that's probably correct.
So it's kind of like along those same.
Unless you happen to be, I mean, this is real technical, at exactly that point that $5 additional price changed your unit volume
Right.
from 4 to 3.
Right.
Okay, all right. But that's being
Yeah. No, but it's the same, I mean, like I said, it's
Okay.
just making sure you're maxing that. Bottom line is you're taking what you've got and maximizing it.
Yep.
To the
Okay.
nth degree.
So now what we have, I think, is 4 ideas. Our first idea is look at each buy individually and max it out. That's idea number 1. But idea number 4 was don't violate the concept of auctioning, right? In that process. Idea number 2 was when supply exceeds demand, lower price on price-sensitive customers and get your sellout levels up. Idea number 3 was when demand exceeds supply, raise price on the lowest paying customers and get your average, your total revenue up. So we now have 4 ideas. Next I want to go, Austin, to driving. Number 5, driving a car. All right, I'm gonna go a little faster in this one, I think. When should we drive a consistent pace? So, here we go. What we want to do is to drive 240 miles. See, that would be about here to Cincinnati. Ron has given you, Senna, a budget on time of 4 hours and a budget on expense of $36. By the way,
I like it.
this is out of date deluxe. By the way,
I don't have any camels in this country. I can't get there.
do you know, does anybody know what the approximate price of gasoline was in June of 2002? Anybody got a guess?
It's
Is it 105?
no, 2 is about $1.05.
105?
$1.80.
$1.50 per gallon,
Okay.
okay? All right, $1.50 per gallon. Do you know what oil was in 1999
Per
per barrel?
$30.
10. In fact, it hit 8 at its low point. I want you to understand that at $134 a barrel for oil, where we were after the Asian economic crisis of 1999, $8 a barrel. Okay,
Interesting.
isn't that interesting? This was done when gas was $3 a gallon,
Smoke that.
which was last year. Okay, okay. Senna, you have an expense budget. We're going to leave it at $36. Okay, this is China, and China subsidizes the price of gasoline for their consumers. So and so does India and Iran too, by the way. Okay. What I want you to do is consider some variables. I want you to know that the faster you drive, the worse your gas mileage. Right? I want you to know that the slower you drive, the more time you consume, right? So, I want to ask you this question. What is your plan to achieve budget on both of these variables, driving to Cincinnati for Ron? Okay? Here is plan A. we're going to drive half the distance at 100 miles per hour, then the other half at 20. Is this a good plan?
No.
Okay? Well, it's not a good plan. Brilliant. Here's the quantification of it. If you drive 100 miles per hour for half the distance, then 20 miles per hour, your mathematical average will be 60 miles per hour. Okay? It will take you 2 hours then. Let's say that you're going to get 20 miles per gallon and consume 12 gallons of gas, and you're going to be at budget in the old environment of $36. So, you could make your budget with this plan. Okay? All right? But is it best for the company? No, because you haven't optimized assets. Time is an asset, money is an asset. So it's not a good plan. Here's plan B. We want to drive 60 miles the entire way. All right? Why is this a better option? It is because at 60 miles per hour, it'll still take us exactly 2 hours. I'm sorry, we've messed that up.
No, that's right. That's
no,
right.
it was 4. It's
Yeah,
2
that's
plus 2, wasn't it? We still have 4 hours, but you see that we consumed 2 gallons less of gas and came in under budget here. Okay? Now let's go to the next slide. Okay. Both time and cost are equally important in this variable that we have given you. Okay? So what we've done is we've beaten the expense budget but not the time budget. So let's consider plan C. In plan C, consider driving 70 miles per hour. And here's what would happen. It may be better than B if you have equal weight on the variables. We're now going to have 3.5 hours of time and 11.4 gallons of gas. So we're going to have a little more gas used, but less time. And if they're equally important to you, then what happens is this is a better alternative than B. Okay?
Under cost, did you factor in the speeding ticket cost?
Yeah.
That's that's a good point. This is interstate.
We're taking the interstate, and it's 70 on the interstate.
This is interstate, so we have factored in that you can get by
You know
with
that I
70.
drive 80, I'd be more comfortable with that between 80 and
Very
100,
good.
so
Okay.
you know.
Now you beat
My
both
costs would
budgets.
be higher.
Why are we talking about driving? It's because pricing is the same as driving. What you're dealing with are 2 inversely related variables, price and demand, or price and sellout level. But they're equal in value, okay? And I can show you that if you don't believe me. But if you sell 100 units at $50 or 50 units at $100, those are exactly the same. Okay? And so what happens is both are important and they're inversely related. And so what we should do when doing our pricing is be aware.
Do you want me to go back?
No, keep going forward. I'm a little. Here's what we're basically talking about. When demand exceeds supply, you have then an issue, and that issue is getting to high sellout levels is only part of the game. One of the things is, what was my mix of speeds in getting there?
Looks rates.
Yeah. Did I have $20 spots and $100 spots? Or most of them around 70? And here's what you're going to find out mathematically. When a piece of inventory can sell out, you're better off not to have a high variability between the low rate and the high rate. It's analogous to driving 100 miles per hour in 20. That $20 spot is a real penalty. So, the reason that we raise price on the lowest paying customer is to compress rates. And when a time period is under pressure, you generally do not want your average rate to be more than about 10 to 15% below your average. If your average rate is
That's a
100
good, nice thumb.
and you have
benchmark.
$50 spots in there, you're driving 20 miles per hour part of the time. What you want to do is compress your rates. Okay?
And
This
that's
is
something that when looking over the skims, you'll see, like, you know,
and there.
Jeopardy, you'll see 375 and 25.
Now, I want to make sure that you understand that if you're wide open, it's not an issue. This is only if you're tight or can get tight. Why? Let me walk you through this. Let's say you have a piece of time, a time period that's hard to fill up. So supply is exceeding demand. What do we want to do? It's recommendation number 2.
Lower rate.
Decrease price on whom?
The high-paying
Credit
clients.
The price-sensitive customers.
Right.
Okay? So what you're actually going to do is leave that price at $500 for the one client who's willing to buy 5, and drop the price on everybody else. So what you do is you actually decompress rates. You increase the difference between the bottom rate and the top rate. When a piece of inventory is not under pressure, then your rates will have wide variation. Why? Because you're dropping price on the bottom on price-sensitive customers. Okay? Can you see that in your head?
Oh, absolutely.
So you don't get worried about it. If you see 25 and 75 at 80% sellout, don't worry about it. All you have to worry about then is, was the $375 stripped out at 5 per week?
Bingo.
High rate without good dollar volume is unacceptable. So you have some questions to ask, but it's not about the low-paying customer. It's
Okay.
about the high-paying customer.
Okay, that makes
Okay.
sense, that makes, yeah.
Now, when a time period is under pressure, what you want to do is raise the bottom bid on the auction. Raise the low-paying customers. What that does is drive you more steady at 60 miles per hour rather than 20 and 100. Okay? All designed to get us 5% more yield out of that time period, or 7% more yield. It's all small, but it adds up. As that famous senator said, Jesse Helms, a billion here and a billion there and a billion here, it eventually adds up to real money.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay? This raises your average rates. Now this is, Austin, I think we're near the end. Maybe not. When should I drive variable rates? Okay, we'll go through this quick. When supply exceeds demand. That's when you have a wide margin. See that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Why? It increases your sellouts. Okay? You're dropping the bottoms without dropping the tops, if you're maxed out up there. And the opposite, I think, was that second one. What are your conclusions? There is a time when your rates ought to be all in a tight range. That's when the inventory is under pressure. Okay? There's a time for the spread to be wide. That's when the inventory is not under pressure and you're needing to fill it up. You'll take any junk spot and any junk deal you can get if you can't get to 100% sellout. Okay? Now this is highly important to rotators. Okay? So the last segment, Austin, that I want to do here is a segment on rotators. And I think we're going to pause with the theory there. Now, not preemptions. Where is rotators?
Is it in another folder?
I don't see copy there. Here we go. Making sure rotators make the money. All right? Rotators. Okay? why rotators can be hated by some companies. They're easy to get out of control. You could call them commodity selling. There is an ability to fly under the radar. Okay, well this show's worth 50, this show's worth 50, this show's 50. I'll do a rotation of 3 to 6 and I'll sell it at $25. Okay, it's not on the rate card, I just make up the rate. What's a rotator? We got flexibility, right? It's a way salespeople can run under the radar. Clients know this, that's why they love it. They know rotators can fly under the radar because it's not on your rate card a lot of times. So they make up all kinds of rotations. We call those renegade rotators. Okay? It's hard to quantify and keep from overselling, and preemptions can be a hassle with rotators. Here is the reality, though. The reality is that a segment of this market buys nothing but rotators, and you can't not sell rotators. In addition to that, you can make money with rotators in several different ways. What you need is our favorite candy. We have a favorite candy. Our favorite candy is M&Ms. Why? We're analytical, and we believe our business is about measuring and managing. Okay? What rotators need is a heavy dose of M&Ms. Okay? So, what we want to do is theoretically ask the question, in any negotiation between a buyer and a seller, the buyer gives up something, usually money, and the seller gives up something, usually product or service. So what we want to do is ask this question, what do you get when you sell a rotator? From the client, what do they give you? They give you vertical flexibility, right? They give you higher sellout levels, in theory. They give you the ability to fill up weak programs by using the strength of the possibility or gamble of getting strong programming. They're a relief valve for too much demand on a single program. But with any negotiation where both sides have some intelligence or skill, whenever you get something, you give up something. So what do you give up on rotators? You give up price. So, do you want to be giving up price in all situations? What if demand is exceeding supply? Do you want to give up price then? No. You want to give up price when supply is exceeding demand, not when demand is exceeding supply. So now the question is, you want to use it only to get sellout levels up, no more. Okay? And so now you ask the question is, how much do you need? Well, it depends. If you have a 9 to 5 rotation and every single program you can sell out, the only real need for rotators is a relief valve, some vertical flexibility. And we probably only need 10 to 20, 15% of our inventory from that. Why? Our estimate of demand and our ability to control inventory means we won't get much tighter than that. You won't be 30% off on how much demand is coming. So if every single program can sell out by itself, it's elastic, you only need 10 to 15% of your inventory in rotators. And if you give 50%, you may be losing money by giving up too much discount. Okay? Now, what happens if you have 6 programs in 1 week? Well, this 1 week one has 100 units by itself. I need to sell more rotators so I can shove more into that one time period.
Got it.
What if I have 2 programs a week? I need more. Or 3 programs a week. You got it? Okay? In effect, you can measure how much rotation you need by looking at the sellout levels of the weak programs. If they are not selling out, you need more rotators. Okay? So, what do you do when you want more rotators? You give a bigger discount. to your mathematical average. What if you want less rotators? You raise the price. See, remember this simple idea. All that yield management is about is incentives and disincentives.
That's a good way of looking at it.
We're going to give a $100 rate the first 2 weeks of June. That's an incentive. $150 the last 2 weeks of June. That's a disincentive. We're about incentives, disincentives, and rules. The rules keep the salespeople in playing an auction. Okay? All right? So, how much discount? Well, first of all, that may be none. You might average $50 a spot from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., put $50 out on a rotator, and people are so in love with the concept of rotators, you'll say, I'll sell every one that you want at the average. You might sell it at a premium. Okay?
Response is a classic example of that.
Sometimes marketplace, or the more they love the rotators, the more you can take advantage of their love by having them actually overpay for it. And they'll pay more for the rotator sometimes than they will any of the individual shows sometimes, or most of them. So here's what we recommend that you do. You take the mathematical average of the shows in the rotator, and you try a 10 to 15% discount. And you just simply measure. You measure by looking at the sellout levels of the week shows. And if their sellout levels are too low, we're not proud. Drop the rate on the rotator. But if the sellout levels are too high, raise the rate. Incentives, disincentives. Incentive to buy more, disincentive to buy as much. Okay? Here's your suggestion. Rotators should not be sign-on to sign-off. Too broad, too much discount. The benefit of, hang on, the reward of falling in heroes is offset by the risk of falling at 2 a.m. in the morning. So I won't pay you a premium with all that differential. It's too much discount. You want them to be usually 4 to 6, let's see the second one, Austin, not too narrow. Do not sell us a 5 to 6:30 rotator that has 2 shows in it. It's not enough flexibility, okay? You need about 4 to 6 programs in there, especially if they are non-network shows,
Right.
okay? Because you only
9
get
to
25
noon.
units, okay?
Like 9 to noon and noon to
Do not guarantee rotation. You have no intention of equal rotation here. Do not guarantee rating points. Or if you do, you have to take the mathematical weighted average to where you're going to put them, which is disproportionate in the weaker shows. So if your 9 to 5 rating is a 1.5, you might be honoring a 1 or a 1.1.
Right, right.
Okay?
Uh-huh.
Do not overlap these babies. You can't do a 9 to noon, a noon to 5, and a 9 to 5. Can't figure out how to optimize that inventory easy. It's too complex.
And it makes traffic crazy.
Yes.
I mean, because it's so hard to place those spots because they sit and displaced forever.
Yes. No renegade rotators. You decide what the rotators are, you put them on a rate card, you tell them the price, and they don't deviate the rotation. Why? They're trying to fly under the radar. Okay? I'll do an the rate card says 9 to 5 at 50. Okay, well I'll do an 8 to 5 at 10. Well, it went on the rate card. $10 was the price, 8 to 9. I chose the lowest one.
You're right, that's a renegade.
Renegade rotator. You can't control it. Raise and lower price. Incentive, disincentive. Okay? Summary. They're not bad. They just can be badly managed. Okay? Okay. Bookends. Why do you have too many bookends?
Because advertisers are demanding them.
No, that's an effect. What's the cause?
They think that, they'll like run the first commercial, same commercial first and last,
You're right.
and people think, that, and they think that they're gonna remember it.
What's causing that? What's causing too many bookends?
People trying to break through the whole clutter out there.
Well, but it's a
It's
lower
their
rate.
way of trying to break through
Lower
that.
rate.
You're pricing it too cheap as an industry. Ogilvy and Mather research study, 1989, I believe is the year. The recall on bookends summed up is about 162% of the impact of a 30.
It should be worth more than.
It should be worth 80% plus 80. What do most stations price bookends? 60-60 or 50-50?
Well, they price them generally what a price of a 30 is, you know.
Yeah, you know.
And that's right, it should be an increase there.
Right, so if an advertising agency had research that says a $100 spot is worth 162 for bookends, and you priced it 100, what would be the unintended consequence of your choice of choosing that price? They would buy too many of them, and the practice would spread.
Okay.
You have
That
too many
makes-
bookends, raise the price. See, we're really simple-minded people.
Oh, so simple.
It's really simple. You got too much of something, raise the price. You got too little of it, lower it. It's a solution for everything. Okay? Cheap competitors. Don't worry about them. You can't change their behavior.
Yep.
WCIA has a long history of being too cheap. I don't know if they've cleaned up their act in the last several years, but they were cheap rotators, jump spots for so many years.
Is that true of Nexstar in general? Inside
No.
the-
No, Nexstar may have cleaned them up. Okay? Not at all. Nexstar has very good commitments to inventory yield.
Mhm.
Okay? They had an in-house system. It wasn't bad, and they understood the concepts. Okay? But, you know, I don't know what you're running up against there now today.
How about Sinclair then?
Sinclair has a very sophisticated system, if they're staying with it, okay? It's an Excel spreadsheet. It's way behind what you have. See, Excel spreadsheets were state-of-the-art in 1991. What you have is a graphical user interface, much more powerful, okay? So, they are 19 years out of date. Their spreadsheet was the one I used in Phoenix to start. I didn't create it. We don't know who created it. It was given to us by a guy named Craig Millar, who went to Sinclair. Huh? You know Craig? Craig is the father.
He knows everybody.
I call Craig Millar the father of pricing, okay, in the industry. He taught me most of what I know about pricing. And it was his spreadsheet that he gave us in 1991 that was the birth of this. Sinclair still uses Craig Millar's spreadsheets. I don't know if they comply with it here, but Sinclair should be a good pricer, okay? GoCom doesn't know what they're doing, okay? Huh?
That's good, that's our competition.
Cheap competitors, don't worry. It doesn't matter what their cost per point is. If you can sell it out at $1 million a point, why are you worried? Now, here's the reality. You're in a competitive world. You're in a competitive business. So you can't be overpriced relative to your competitors entirely. But you don't know where they're priced. You can't do anything about it. What you should do is focus on what you can control. That's your sales force, your people, and your price. Okay? If If you can sell it out at 200 a point and they're at 50, that means your audit's gonna be good. Now, you don't get an audit, but you're gonna overperform. So, you have cheap competitors, don't spend any time worrying about it. Why? It's because you can't change it. But the other thing is that if they have half a brain, if they're running at 75% sellout, they'll be lowering rate, trying to attract more demand, and so they're doing what's logical for them. See, what we like to do in the industry is to get our competitor to illogically raise rates to benefit us. That is not a real good idea, to be wasting a lot of energy, hoping for them to give us a Christmas present. Please raise your rate to help me. Focus on yourself, okay?
Go ahead.
I have a quick question. We were discussing this the other day, Ron, the squad report.
Don't use it to price.
Okay.
Don't what?
Don't use it to price.
What do you use the price?
ShareBuilder or supply demand. Squad is a great starting place, but it's a starting place. Okay.
Well, where do you start? Where do you share it?
Your history.
Oh,
Okay.
you don't average cost per points apart or anything?
Your history. We'll show it to you.
Okay.
We start by saying last year you had a 2 rating, you averaged $100 a spot, you averaged $50 a point, and you sold 80% of it. Okay? Here you go. All right, now let me just ask you. Pick a time. All right, here we go. Let's take a specific show, Austin. 6 a.m. How about 6 a.m.? All right. You had 90.
This is gonna be great.
You had 97% sellout in third quarter last year at $36 with an average rating of 1 and $38 a point. Now, let's say that demand, let's just say that demand is going to be, the market's going to be down 4% this year. Okay?
Okay.
And let's say your rating is a 1. Okay? Oh, let's make it even easier. Demand's going to be flat.
Okay.
Okay? Demand is going to be flat, and you've got a 1 rating. What are you going to price this at? About $36 a spot. Maybe $37.
Okay.
Why? This sellout level is excellent. Love 97% sellout. Unless it was 120% sellout in September and 70 in July,
Got it. Okay.
and it wasn't.
That was right across, pretty consistent across the board.
What's the right price here? $37. Okay?
That's what you mean by going into history.
Yeah.
Taking
Now, yeah, let's play a game. You be Sarah for a second. This is a 2 rating. Now what do you price it at? Well, if every single buy in the marketplace is an agency commodity buy, 2 times 38 is $76. You'll get $38 a point, approximately, probably. Okay? Now, if you have some people that are agency and some that are direct, though, the direct will underappreciate your rating gain of 20%. You won't get 76. You'll get 66 or something in between. Okay? Now, supply of units goes up 10%. Sarah is going to discount 5% because demand will go up 10% and then will equalize sellout levels because of an increase of supply. Okay? Now, sellout levels were 80%. You need to sell 25% more units. Rating is the same. She discounts 12.5% and hits 100% exactly. You've already been exposed to the ideas.
The short answer is that we're going to take care of all that for you. We're not going to make you worry about ratings increases
Right.
or...
Yeah, but it's nice to know how you arrive at it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a function of, now, make demand up 10. Make sellout level 80%, rating up 100%, demand up 10%. We take all those variables, cross-index them, and come up with Adam Smith's equilibrium rate. That price at which supply-demand is equalized.
But how do you know demand is up 10%?
We don't, but we have estimates of it. And we do an estimate as pragmatic as possible and adjust.
I like this kind of factor and be more exact, because I used to look at the average rate in a vehicle, in a time program, look at what inventory was there. Do my increases, but always make sure they increase if I had enough inventory on top, so I was always increasing on my average. And that's gonna be more exact, and do a better job at it.
Sometimes you want to decrease average rate.
Well, you're right, you're right.
Okay?
Whenever you're
I try to always
Okay.
take the increase.
Let's go ahead and distribute the food.
I
Yes, the lights on?
Do what?
Turn the lights on for a few
Yeah,
moments?
absolutely. Okay.